So we have more winners with us now.
Oh, great.
Look, only winners inside this Zoom room.
Oh, that'll be fun. That'll be a fun discussion.
We don't want you to feel alone, you know?
I never do in a Toastmaster room.
Yeah, that's the good thing about being a Toastmasters. Just another good thing about being a Toastmaster.
That's
Never
right.
being alone.
That's right. That's what we should do, is we should have a Toastmasters meetup or several Toastmasters meetups in the world for the World Cup in 4 years.
Maybe we can do it.
Hello, good evening. Sorry for the delay.
Okay, do you think we can start? Are you ready, Mike?
I'm ready.
Okay, so I think we are going to start because we need to take care of time like we always do in Toastmasters. So welcome, fellow Toastmasters, and we are really, really excited about this evening. This is a pleasure to be here with all of us, and we are really sure that this is going to be a huge opportunity for us to develop ourselves. My name is Vera Margarida Cunha, and I am the current Program Quality Director of District 107. So today is about a lot of different things. This is about learning, sharing, about developing ourselves, about our Toastmasters worldwide family, and about winning. And when I'm talking about winning, it's not only about becoming the world champion of public speaking, but mainly about everything you win in the journey until you get there, of course. So today we are pleased to have here with us someone who has won a lot while he was competing from his club until the finals. We have here with us someone who knows everything about communication, virtual, on stage, interpersonal, someone who knows the power of storytelling. He is someone who believes that motivation doesn't work anymore. Determination does. So please welcome on the screen the world champion of public speaking of 2020, Mike Carr.
Hey, my dear friends. It is so great to see you today. I'm going to take my glasses off so you can see me a little bit more, but I can not see as much, maybe get a little less clear. So today I'd like to talk to you about the contest. We're coming into contest season. A lot of clubs will be running their original contest this month and next month. I know my own home club, our contest is just next Tuesday, a week from last night. And so many people, 30,000, 36,000 around the world will begin that journey to be the world champion of public speaking. I want to give you one small key, one small part that can make that journey more profitable for you. I want to do that first by just telling you a story. Back when I was in high school, I got involved in theater and I decided I wanted to do a musical one summer. There was a musical that had been going on Broadway in New York that was called Once Upon a Mattress. And it was the musical version of The Princess and the Pea. This wonderful comedian named Carol Burnett played the lead part. And so our high school decided, the school I was going to decided we wanted to do that musical. I got a little part in it. We sang songs and we jumped around, and I played the part of this guy that was meeting this young woman who was supposed to be a princess. And if you remember the story, The Princess and the Pea, they said that a true princess could feel a pea that was stuck underneath 2 or 3 mattresses. And so they stack up all these mattresses, and this young woman comes and sleeps with a small pea underneath 4 or 5 mattresses. And at the end of the story, she says, oh, I had a horrible night's sleep. The bed was lumpy. I felt lumping all, and it's revealed that she's a true princess. And I thought about this concept in the middle of that musical while doing all of those rehearsals. I thought about this concept about one small, tiny thing that makes all the difference. And I really was not the first one to think about this. Vilfredo Pareto, an Italian polymath, had found this, what we call the 80-20 rule, that there are a small subset of activities or things that drive 80% of the results we want. What if, my friends, what if all of the things we hear about the contest, about how to win the contest, how to advance in the contest, what if there's just a very small percentage of those ideas that really make all the difference? Well, I'm going to suggest to you that that's right, that Pareto was right. And there are some Pareto activities, some Pareto ideas that drive the contest. But there's one small P, a pea under the mattress, that makes all the difference. And that is, if you want to win this contest cycle, you have got to have fun. Now, that sounds way too simple. And I say that to so many people and they roll their eyes and go, oh, have fun, enjoy the journey. No, but it really is. It's what the American jurist, Supreme Court Justice, there was a Supreme Court justice that was Oliver Wendell Holmes. And he said, I would not give a fig for the simplicity on this side of complexity, but I would give my right arm for the simplicity found on the far side of complexity. And this concept, the idea of having fun, is the simplicity on the far side of complexity. The reason why you do so much better in the contest, if you're having fun, is that it allows your creativity to flow. It allows you to connect with the judges and the audience, and they can feel that at a cellular level, at a palpable level. They can tell you are having fun. You're not trying to win. That's not, you do want to win, but trying to win is not your very primary goal. You're helping other people, but you're having fun. If you will have fun, then you avoid the discouragement that always comes whenever contestants compete against one another. And it will all just flow. So having fun, enjoying the journey, laughing at yourself, laughing at everything that happens in this contest cycle guarantees that you will win the cycle. You may not win the World Championship of Public Speaking. There were a lot of contest years that I was competing that I won, but I didn't win the cycle because I wasn't having fun. Then I started having fun. I still didn't win, but I still didn't win the whole full contest, but I won the cycle. It was a great experience and my learning jumped up. And then there came a time when I learned enough and had gotten enough practice and experience that I ended up winning the World Championship of Public Speaking. And the same can happen for you if you will focus on those Pareto activities. So the first one, if there's one activity that makes all the difference, makes everything else easier, it's having fun, it's enjoying it. Commit today that no matter what else happens, you will not allow yourself to be sucked into the stress and pressure that a lot of times people feel. And that's not easy, but the same way we build muscle by working out, the same way we go run marathons by running first a mile and then a mile and then 3 miles and build up to it. That's the same way that we can tell our psychology, this is fun, just have fun. I'm in it for the fun. We tell ourselves enough that, especially out loud, our brains begin to believe that. It quiets down the fear centers of our brain, which allows more blood to flow to the creative, newer centers of our brain. That's the way humans work. Having fun makes more difference than you will ever know. Okay, so if there are 25 more things that people tell you that you should remember in the contest, Vilfredo Pareto suggests that only 20% of that drive 80% of the results. So let's pick 5. Let's pick 5 things that if you focus on that, mean that you could go further in this contest cycle than you've ever gone before. Okay. The first one is say one thing. Just say one thing. Whenever I watch, and I watch a lot of contests at Toastmasters, I talk to a lot of judges now. I go through and I watch districts, I watch regions around the world. I've been happy enough and blessed enough to be asked to be a judge in a lot of those. The thing that I hear from judges more often than not is they'll say that contestant had great delivery, had a great story, but she tried to say too many things in a 7-minute speech. That happens with so many of us because we have all these ideas and we fall in love with ideas and stories. We try to say too much. Almost every speech I have ever started writing, I have tried to say too much, even though I knew that was something that would trip me up. And I've had good coaches who have told me, Mike, you're saying too much. You're trying to pack too much in. Get rid of this, get rid of that. Say one thing. If you remember the speech, my dear friend said it as we started off, just as in this session together at the very beginning, he reflected back to me. He said, remember, the victory is not in the result. The victory is in the try. And I said, yes, that's right. That's the one thing. If you remember that final speech, that was the one thing that I ended up deciding that I had to say was the victory is in the try. It's not in the result. Now, when that speech started, I was saying too many things, and that had to shave down. There was a contest. Oh goodness, it was 2013, the first year that I went to the semifinals. The original speech started with a story about Frank and Lois, and it was a beautiful love story. And I'm sad that I no longer can compete in the contest because I was really excited to use that story in a speech, but I told the story about Frank and Lois, and then I morphed it into a story about my daughter. And when I hit the regional contest, a really good Toastmaster in my district came up, who won district many times. She came up and she said, I love the Frank and Lois story. But this speech, it's about your daughter. That's really the speech. And so I had to say goodbye to Frank and Lois. And it just broke my heart because it is such a beautiful love story. But I was trying to give 2 speeches in the middle of one. Now, the Frank and Lois speech, it was a good speech. It would not have gone to the semifinals. So I said goodbye to Frank and Lois. I blew out, expanded the speech about my daughter, and that is when I went to the semifinals for the first time. So the first Pareto activity or first Pareto principle would be say one thing in your speech. As you're beginning to write, look at your speech and say, am I saying just one thing? Am I making one point? And then you can build out around it with stories, humor, and entertainment. Okay. So say one point. That the second Pareto principle would be write it out. If you talk with Darren LaCroix, if you talk with Mark Brown, if you talk with me, all of us kind of go back to this great coach in Toastmasters, David Brooks, who happens to live here in Austin, Texas with me. Because he lived in Austin, Texas, early on in 2013, I went to him and I said, would you coach me in the World Championship of Public Speaking? I've just seen individuals with coaches do better. And he said, yes. And I said, well, why don't I send you a video of my speech? He said, nope, don't want to see it. I said, what? You want to coach me, but you don't want to see my speech? And he said, no, just send me what's written out. So I sent it to him. written out. He didn't see my presentation. He didn't see my body language. He didn't hear my voice fluctuation. He looked at the writing. He helped me make changes, and that made the difference to go to the semifinals. So we can talk more about this in the Q&A if you want to, but one of the things that I do is I either start with the story or the message. You don't always have to start with the message. A lot of people will say, always pick what you want to say and then create a story around it. That's not necessary. Most of my speeches that have won, I've heard a really great story and I felt something, or it made me laugh out loud or guffaw, or it really inspired me. And then I stopped and I thought, okay, I feel that feeling in my body, right? What was it about that story that made me feel that way? And usually it's because it teaches me something. It makes a strong point. So start with either the point or the story, then you can get to the other one. But then I would suggest you sit down and you write it out word for word. It will always change. And you can add to it and add humor. But if it's written out, there are phrases there that are memorable, that don't just exist. When I asked this to David Brooks, and I said, if I write it out, doesn't it sound scripted? Doesn't it sound pedantic? And he said, what are some of the greatest speeches you've ever heard? And I said, well, Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech is one of them. And he said, do you think that Martin Luther King made that up on the spot? It's a good point. No, he didn't. It was written out. And then we'll talk about how, in just a minute, how you get to the point of making it natural. So that is the second big point, is write it out. Write it out from the very beginning. All right. The third big point is connection with the audience is more important than performance. We focus a lot in Toastmaster clubs on voice up and down and body language. And we need to do that because we're taking people who are scared to speak and we are teaching them the beginning building blocks of how to speak. But when you come to the point where you're wanting to get far in the contest, it becomes more about connection than it does about performance. The performance matters, but the connection matters more. So really focus on practicing speaking to members in the audience, looking at their facial expressions, the way they react, and reacting off of them like we do in natural conversation, either over Zoom or in person. The third, so that was number 3. The fourth major point is then practice, 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 practice. So many people are so worried that if I script it out and then I practice it over and over and over again, it's going to sound scripted. And the opposite is actually the case. It's something that I learned when I did that first theater production, the Once Upon a Mattress. I had to deliver my lines because someone else was waiting on me to say the right thing. I couldn't just ad lib or the entire production would go off the rails. So this is the hard work about the contest, is it gets boring. I have people who ask me, doesn't it get boring practicing? Yes. Don't you get to the point where you're tired of saying the same thing over and over again? Yes. Don't you feel like it gets flat when you've practiced over and said the same thing over and over and over again? Yes. But then on the other side of that is when the creativity flows and we're able to put in the voice modulation and we discover little pieces where that creativity, because again, it quiets the fear centers of the brain. I know exactly what I'm going to say. And so I can get creative with it and then go back and script it out. And then finally, the last big piece is it's got to be entertaining. And that's why there's got to be a story in 7 minutes. There's probably only room for one story if it's told right. And then always, pound for pound, in every contest, if someone says something of substance with a great story and the delivery is fantastic, the one with more humor wins. So Think about that. We can talk about, so we're going to stop, go for questions. We can talk about anything you want to. Humor, adding in, we can blow out some of these. I am at your disposal.
Okay, so Mike, first of all, thank you for your sharing. It was very interesting for me, and I'm sure it was for everyone, because you really nailed it out. So it's not as difficult as that. I'm just joking. Of course, it's difficult. It's a lot of work, but actually we need to start simplifying things and focusing on the important messages. So I'm really thankful for your sharing and for your availability and for the way you have shared your knowledge with us. That's what I'm trying to say. So now we have some questions, and I'm inviting you all to write them down in the chat, because it will be easier for us to manage it. And we have here one question from Antonio San Nicola, and he's asking you how much you can separate a story that you love to tell from a story that is worth telling.
That's a really good question, and I don't think I have heard that before, so I may think out loud. That way I don't sit here and stop and think for a long time. First, I would ask, are you sure the story you love to tell is not worth telling? And I'm trying to think about a story that I love to tell that doesn't, at its core, have really something to say. And I can't think of one, even if it's just purely entertaining. Isn't there something in that story that is worth saying? But let's assume for a minute that it's not. Now, I want to make sure I'm answering the question you asked. You said, how do you separate out the story you love to tell from the story that is worth telling? I think that's the first one. I would suggest that most of the time, the story you love to tell is worth telling. If you don't see on the surface why it's worth telling, I would recommend that you dig on it a little bit more, because if it's funny, then it has a bit of irony in it, right? And I might dig and find a lesson that I could make, even if it's really funny. But if I'm talking about the story that I know is worth telling, then maybe you reverse engineer that and you take the story that is worth telling and make it a story that you love to tell. So how do you do that? Let's think about that for a minute. I believe that every story we tell can become a story that we love to tell. One, by adding in humor. There is a wonderful comedy coach here in Austin, and she has in fact, it's all online. If you ever want to join the Laughing Matters Toastmasters, that we still meet all online. And Amy Samet started the club. She's not the current president, but she's often president. And she is a brilliant comedy coach. And she often says, every single story, no matter the subject matter, you can add humor to. You can find a way to add humor to by practicing, it's hard, but you can find a way to add humor. So a story that's worth telling, you can add humor to it. You could build out the characters. A lot of times, a story that's worth telling can become a story we love to tell by really building out the setting. There was a story I was telling about a friend of mine who died from cancer. And it became a compelling story because I told, in part of that story, sitting with her husband at a little cafe in a small Western town in America. And I talked about the gingham tablecloth and the way that the way that the silverware felt between my fingers, and the smells that were happening around us as we were talking about this very serious subject. and it became a story I love to tell, even though it didn't at the beginning. So feel free to email me. If that did not answer your question, feel free to email me at contact@mikecarrofficial.com, and feel free to drill down a little bit more. I'll try to answer it better if that did not answer exactly what you were asking.
So, Mike, we have another question that is story versus messaging. How do you find inspiration to add a message to a story you want to use for a speech?
Oh, it's a great question. It's a great question. And I do get asked that a lot. And so I think a lot of people are asking about that, because a lot of other world champions that I talk to and hear will say they began first with the message they wanted to give. And I really never have. I mean, rarely. I have once or twice, but rarely. I usually hear or read a story that impacts me. And I think, oh, that would be a great story for a contest. All right. So I'm out in the world, or I might be at church, or I might be at a community event or some other religious event where someone, either religious or community or sometimes political, or anywhere someone is presenting and they give a story, or in conversation, you hear a story. I think, oh, that's a really great story. And it impacts me. So the first thing I would say is, the more we listen for, we write down, and we tell ourselves, I'm listening for great stories out in the world, trust me, you will begin to hear them everywhere. So you hear a great story. I think the first thing we should always realize is, where in my body does that impact me? Right? I know that can sound kind of woo-woo or spiritual or weird, but it's really based in neuroscience. Our brain really isn't just our brain. It is our brain and our entire nervous system. And so whenever you hear a story and you can feel the top of your head tingle, it's something that is an aha. It's aha. We learn something. We get excited. We as humans, we are curious beings if we allow ourselves to be. We learn something, go, that, and we'll feel the top of our head tingle. It's our nervous system telling us, I liked that story because I learned. I felt like I grew. If you feel it in your chest, then it's one of those that you feel empathy or love or some strong emotion toward the hearer, toward the hero of the story, toward someone else. And that's good to know, because that's what your audience will be feeling also if you're relaying a story. And sometimes we'll just feel a chill run down the back of our spine, and that can be even fight or flight, anything else. The reason I mention that is that tells us kind of where to really be thinking and ask questions of ourselves. What is it about that story that caused me to feel in my chest some deep emotion? What is the deep emotion that I feel? Was there? Is it love? Is it connection? And if it's, let's pick connection, right? What is the connection there? Is it the connection of a brother and sister, siblings? That's what made me feel that way. Well, now we have our universal truth, because almost all of us have siblings, or we have someone in our lives that we feel like is a brother or sister. And so if you tell a story then in a way that goes to the message, think about the kinds of things that happen between siblings. There's conflict. There is support. There is education and learning. Sometimes siblings begin in believing the same thing, and then they have life experience and they end up believing very different things. You could start with a story that you heard out in the wild that made you feel about a connection about siblings, and your message could be, all of us on this planet are brothers and sisters. We all love our children, love our parents. We want good things to happen. Life experience has led us to believe different things politically, religiously. But if we always remember we're brothers and sisters and we have that familial connection, we can get over the differences that are less important than that connection. And there's your message. Okay, you can do that with any kind of story that you hear out there. But what you're doing is you're looking for the feeling, what universal truth. Universal truth is the kind of something that is common to all of us. So if you're talking to a group of an audience that 80 to 90% or 100% would understand, would resonate with that message. That's where you're trying to get. And by drilling down little by little, and a lot of times getting a coach to help you do that, or even just someone in your Toastmaster club who can ask you, say, this is what I'm trying to do. And they ask you the questions, so what's behind that? Why does it make you feel that way? Can help you get there. I hope that helps. But again, email me if I didn't answer the question. I'll try to take another stab at it.
You are answering all of them. And now I have a very difficult one for you. Are you prepared? Okay.
Yes.
So the question is, can we lie a little bit to make it more dramatic and humorous? Or do people will hate us for that?
I really am one to believe that there are very few absolutes, okay? And I would say it this way. I would say, I think it depends on what I think it just depends on what your value system is, okay? So I know and I do a lot of professional speaking outside of Toastmasters. I speak to a lot of banks and economists, financial institutions, insurance companies. And so I run into a lot of people that are very black and white. What I mean by that is they believe everything is either right or wrong. There's no gray in the middle. And a lot of speakers that I work with in that area, they would say it either is the absolute exact truth or it's a lie, and you should never tell a lie. All right. Now, I also work with a lot of psychologists because we do, and a lot of neuroscientists because we do a lot of mindset training. And a psychologist will tell you that really we don't know what exact truth is, because what our brains do every time we remember an event, we filter it through our current experience. And so we never remember the same event ever the same way twice. So I have another speaking friend who is a psychologist who says, we don't know what exact truth is. Does anyone really know what exact truth is, right? And so, by staying with the spirit of the truth, then you're speaking your truth. So back to the question, why did I tell you all that? I would say to you, whoever asked this question, what is your value system? If your value system says, no, if I don't tell it exactly the way I remember it, then that's a lie and that's bad. Then I think you should stick by that. And you should build out the story, focus on the settings and the funny thing that happens. If you are someone that says it's the spirit of the truth that really is the most important, that a speech is more like a parable. It's more like a movie producer giving a message. What would be a good movie? Oh, it's like The Crown. I don't know if you watch The Crown. That's big in the United States, but is The Crown truth about the English monarchy? Well, it's certainly not the exact truth, because they take a lot of poetic license. But does it follow the realm of the truth? And this, does it follow the spirit of the truth? And so if you're going to make a message and you're okay following the spirit of the truth, then that is all right. Now, you said, will people hate me for it? Yes, some will. some will. Now, I would say, be honest about if you take license with a story. If you tell a story that is fictitious about a person that does not exist, and someone comes up to you and says, is that a true story about someone that exists? Don't tell them yes. That I think that's a bridge too far. But I do know a speaker who a professional speaker. He told a story one time. An audience member came afterward and he said, "Is that a true story?" And he said, "What part about that doesn't seem true?" I thought it was a great answer because he didn't lie, but he didn't say, "I'm not going to tell you," but he very skillfully stayed to his truth. So the way I personally believe, I believe that I believe that I can take a little bit of license, poetic license with a story, but I want to be honest about that.
Okay, great answer. So now we have some questions about poses. So what is the best way to make or use poses, and what for? For drama, for effect, to allow the audience to think? And also we have another question about poses, that is, how many should be used in a speech?
So you're saying, are you saying poses as?
No. Sorry about my bad English. Pauses.
No. It's
when you stop.
It's my Southern dialect.
When you give people to think. When you give people time to think.
Pauses. Oh yes. Okay. I should have thought about in terms of context. I absolutely love pauses. Absolutely. In fact, I give a speech to banks about listening where I pause a full 30 to 45 seconds at the beginning of the speech, and it makes the entire room incredibly uncomfortable, but then come back and make a point about listening later. I love pauses. So here's my observation, is that we as speakers standing in front of a lot of eyeballs, we get uncomfortable with that long a pause. Okay. But that long a pause is a lot shorter than it feels like to us. So the first thing I would say is, if you want to, I think we absolutely, there's a lot, and this is a way, maybe some of you have heard me talk about differentiation is one of those big Pareto principles in getting further in the contest, is not doing it the way everyone else has done. Look at the way they've done it and then do it just slightly differently so that it's different than what the judges are seeing. And adding pauses, I would say anybody who wants to really pause. In fact, if somebody gave a contest speech about pauses, that could really be interesting and could go far if it's done well, done right, with humor and everything else. But this is one way that Toastmasters can really differentiate yourselves in the contest. Is there just aren't a lot of people that put in a very pregnant pause, a very long pause, and let silence just hang there with purpose. So that's, I would encourage everyone to put in more pauses. Second point is, those pauses probably need to be longer than you feel comfortable at the beginning. All right. Now, I know we only have 7 minutes, and so you've got to factor that in. So it means saying less in the 7-minute speech. But pauses can be incredibly impactful. They can be a little bit longer. I would say really stretch with that and experiment with that. until you've got maybe your coach come in and say, ooh, that's a little too long. But if it has purpose, like if you're leading to, you're going to say a very important point, you're coming in and you're talking with a lot of energy and you're getting right to the punchline, and you come to the point where you just say the point. It just locks the audience back into the thing you're going to say. Or you're going and going and you're going and you're talking about it and you're driving along and just went off the cliff. That pause brings people back in. And so that's another, I would lead with energy or come out of it with energy. That usually makes that pause feel more purposeful than if you're just talking and you pause. But the energy and the twist and the turn, that's, we think about other ideas on pauses. The main thing I would say about it is just don't be afraid of the silence. There's a lot of talking in contests. You can differentiate yourselves by putting in a pocket of silence with purpose.
So the next one is very easy, I think. So when you reach the semifinals, which speech should be chosen? The best one, or you save the best one for the final that you might not reach?
It is your choice, but I will give you a sob story about a lesson I learned. And what I would suggest is you give your best speech in the semifinal. So it was 2015. It was the second time I got to the semifinals. The first speech that I was giving, it had a lot of humor in it. It took me from club level all the way through district, I guess, and then it won the regional as well because we videotaped it like we do. And I was going to semifinal. I was practicing both speeches, and the speech that I was saving for the final, it just kept getting better and better and better and better until I was practicing both speeches. And the last 3 clubs I gave it in, some of the best speakers in those clubs, I remember one of them in particular, her name is Amber, and she's in this Laughing Matters Toastmasters. I finished that I gave the speech I was going to give at the semifinals, and then I gave the speech I was going to give at the finals. And there was this pause in the room, and she just said, from the back of the room, she said, "Oh, that one has gotten really good." And we said, "Well, do we give that one?" And I thought, no, I want to save that for the final. Well, I didn't progress. I didn't even place in that semifinal. And so I never got to give that really best speech. And because I'd given it before and the rules changed, then I was not able to give it as a semifinal speech in 2020. So I never got to give that speech, and I did not progress to the final. I would say you definitely want to be in the final more than you want to win the final or place in the final. And so better to give your best speech in the semifinals and have to stay up all night writing a new speech than to not get to the final. That's my opinion.
Okay, so Mike, we have, I think, time for one more question. And now I'm the one doing the question. What was the most important moment for you all along the journey?
Wow. What was the most important moment for me all along the journey? I would say it was when I did not even place in 2015. I lost. I had the 10th speaking spot. I had a speech that 3 different world champions had told me was a world champion winning speech. And I went to the semifinals. I had the last speaking spot. It was full of humor. The audience was laughing. They cried a little bit. And they announced the 3rd place speaker. It was not me. They announced the second place speaker. It was not me. And I thought, oh my goodness, I'm going to the finals. They announced the first place speaker and it was not me. And I thought, oh my goodness, I did not even place. And up until that point, every year I had been, I've probably been in 20 contests. Up to that point, I've probably been in 15 different contests, 15 different years. Every year, my entire goal was, I am the world champion of public speaking 2005. I am the world champion of public speaking 2006. My entire goal and self-talk was, I will win the world champion of public speaking. And when I lost in 2015, I was so discouraged. And I finally just said, I'm just going to give up on this idea of being the world champion of public speaking. And I thought I might not even enter the contest again, but then I started thinking about all the fun I had and everything I'd learned. And so I thought, okay, from now on, I'm just going to have fun. I'm just going to get curious. I'm going to learn what I can learn. And so then I started every contest. I would just pray out to the creator, out to the universe, that the one person who needed to hear that message that day would be touched. And I didn't care if I placed or not. And that's when I started winning more. And then that's when I won the overall. But it was that, I'd say that was the best thing that happened through all the contests. Even in that it was the worst feeling I'd had, but it took me from the drive. It was a end in itself to, it was really just, it was the journey. It was being on the path, of learning. And that's where that idea that the victories in the try came from.
And that was also your first lesson that you have shared with us. Have fun. So thank you for that. Mike, we are having here a special request that is for you to say again your 5 commandments for developing a speech. I think everyone, most of the people knows it. You can write it down on the chat just to know how attentive we are, but can you please say them again?
Yes. So that there's an overarching one, that's have fun, for all the reasons that I just said, because of your excellent question. Thank you. Then the 5 pieces that I would say are the Pareto activities. One is say one thing instead of multiple things. In your contest speech, just really say one thing and then say it really well. So say one thing. Secondly, is write out the speech, write out your speech. Thirdly is connection with the audience and the judges is more important than your performance. So focus most on connection. So say one thing, write it out. Connection is more important than performance. Fourth is practice until you're bored, sick of it. And then all the way till it starts becoming enjoyable again, but practice constantly for all those reasons. And then finally is make it entertaining. Stories, comedy, humor.
Okay, this was a masterclass really about how to develop a winning speech and have fun along the way. So we are really, really enjoyed with your sharing, and we are really pleased with your availability to be here with us, and we are happy that we are learning from the best. This is our motto. But
can I say one thing? I don't want to do any commercial or anything, but if you happen to know a bank that has a hard time getting all the referrals they want, I do teach them to help others tell their story. If you would just refer me, I would love to come to your part of the world and talk to banks. That would be a wonderful thing. And then I do take on some coaching clients for the contest. So I so appreciate. I hope this has been helpful. That's the main thing.
It really was, and this is only the beginning of the Winners Academy, because we are talking about an academy, and now it's the time for us to reveal for everyone here what are we talking about. So please, Isidro, you are my fellow Toastmaster and companion in this Winners Academy, and now the stage is yours.
Thank you, Vera. Thank you, Mike. It was a wonderful workshop. Thank you for that. Now I will share with you, because Mike was a kickoff of a broader project that we will now share with you all. Can I share my screen? Okay, so we started with the big Mike Carr today, but this is just the beginning, a big beginning, like a big band. Then we will have on January 12, Carol Bowser. She will talk about how to make your voice easy on the ear. She's a very experienced Toastmaster. She's a DTM, she's a trainer, and TEDx speaker, and she's specialized in voice. So if you want to learn something about vocal variety and so on, this is your day. And then next week, the following week, January 19th, we will have Roger Caesar, my friend, was in the final with me. It was the second runner-up in 2021. He will deliver a workshop with the title, Decide, Commit, and Succeed. So you should attend. And we have Jessica Breitenfeld with us today, and I have Jessica on both screens. She will teach us how to be funny. 3 tips, three practical and useful tips. Jessica is our current district champion. So if you want to learn from her, you should attend. January 23rd. Then we have Lério Cunha, turning a speech into a conversation. And this is related with what Mike has said, that connect with the audience. And connection, remember, it's more important than the performance. So if you want to learn how to turn in your speech into a conversation or some kind of conversation, you should attend, because we have 2 workshops on February 2nd. Lério, it's the first that I gave in a Toastmaster was watching a Lério speech, so you should attend. And Percy Roland is a trainer, is a great speaker, it's one of the best workshop deliverer. I don't know if this expression exists, but you got what I wanted to say. He will deliver a speech with a very funny title, Lessons from a Loser. So if you don't want to be a loser, come and learn on February the 2nd. And on February 9, we have a guy. How can I present this guy? Because it's such a nice guy, you know. It's such a nice guy, that Isidro Souza. He will deliver a workshop about structure and building blocks of a contest speech. So if you want to know the pattern of winner speeches, you should attend on February 9th. Finally, we will have Mark Brown. He was the world champion. Mikey is clapping. Yes, I got, it's, you know, it's so great to have two world champions here, Mike, you and Mark Brown. Mark Brown was the champion, the world champion in 1995. He will deliver a workshop about platform mastery, shine on stage and online. And we saw Mike shining online, and I remember every contestant in the following year, that was my year, everybody trying to use the virtual stage just like Mike did. So congratulations for that. This is our schedule, our plan. This is the program. I hope you can write it down. It will be delivered by email and WhatsApp and several means. And just write it down and attend to all of these workshops. In the end, you will be a better speaker than you are today. I guarantee.
Okay, so we hope you are all excited to be part of this Winners Academy. So I was asking you to write down some words about this workshop, and I'm reading here some words like fantastic, inspiring. Thanks for this great session and for setting up a fantastic program. Thank you, Mike, for all the tips. Wonderful. And this is just a little bit of love that we want to share with all of you from the District 107. Terrific. Congratulations. Thank you so much. What a great initiative. So this was amazing for us. It was really inspiring, and it was a pleasure to receive you here, Mike. And we want to take a picture together. Thank you, Norberto, for that. But also we want you to enjoy all this journey of learning. And remember the most important lesson for me that Mike has shared with us. The victory is on the try, not on the results. So let's try to make us all better speakers. And before we go, let's take a picture together.